We run a basic route around the United States every 2 weeks. The loop from California to California is we're there every 2 weeks, right? So we'll be on the opposite side of the country in a week and then back in a week. So cross-country trips are 5 or 6 days typically. And we're in the process of building another one that runs the other way. If you're along those routes, then the price is very, very competitive. And mostly because we stay competitive because we're working with working dogs. That's the goal here is to be, I would love to be 90% working dog. With 90%
it'd be great.
Oh, would
That would be great. They understand how things work. If you've never had a dog, you're getting your first puppy, you don't know a lot about dogs, you don't know a lot about how this works. And, there's lots of concerns and questions you have to answer. Or they're not comfortable with the setup or the fact that their dog's being crated. And so one of the nice things about people who understand dogs is you see our setup and hear how we do things. And you're like, oh, that sounds great. That's perfect. We know how dogs work. That's good for them. They get what we do. Our biggest convenience to people who choose to use our service is it's their time. So let's say you're here in Tennessee, you want to go out to Idaho and you want to hunt, right? Well, you only have a week. It might take you 2 days to drive up there and it's going to take you 2 days to drive back. So that's 4 days of that week that you had allotted to go out there. Well, if you call us, then,
your dog's there when you get there.
Your dog's there when you get there, and the day you leave, we come pick them up. So you have your full week, and then we'll take care of the rest of it. Sackett.
See, I wanted to say Sackett. That's why I ask.
It's Bob, comedian.
Bob. Oh yeah, Bob Sackett.
That was my dad's name was Bob, and man, he fought that forever because he was a fan, but not of the Full House stuff he did, the stuff he did before. And
so I don't think a lot of people realize how I don't know raunchy some of his
the early stuff was rough. I mean, he was full Richard Pryor. You know what I mean?
Oh well. We're sitting here with Jocelyn and Todd Sackett of not Bob Saget, which we just covered on, but Sweet Briar Pet Transport. Is it Sweet Briar Farm Pet Transport or
Sweet Briar? So we had a kennel at one point, and the kennel's name was Sweet Briar Farm. Okay. We had Newfoundland dogs, and so it kind of carried over. And then when we set the LLC up, we dropped the farm out.
Gotcha.
There's probably a dozen Sweet Briar farms around the country.
Yeah.
And so we took that out because it was kind of confusing.
So there's a million Sweet Briars out there. You had to distinguish yourself a little bit. So Newfoundlands, were those working dogs, or did you just kind of do it for the pet industry or pet dog people?
They were. We had a couple working dogs when I was a kid. I lived in Alaska, and that's how I got to like the breed. And those were working dogs. The breed used to be bigger. They were 100, 150, 175, 200 pounds, and those dogs were for hauling firewood. So when I'm a kid, there's no side-by-sides or four-wheelers. 3-wheelers were just a new thing to kill yourself on. And, so there's a tractor. You got a tractor or a truck. And so you're dragging firewood out of the woods in Alaska, and the dogs, they're huge, and they're super strong, and they can pull a toboggan or a sledge, and you can load 400 pounds of firewood on there and put them in a harness and throw a wagon, and away they go.
And I'm sure, like every other working dog, they come to appreciate it and love it. And
oh yeah, that's what they do.
It's what they do. It's what they're bred for.
Let's go get some wood. And we burn, I think, between 10 and 14 full cords of wood a year to heat our house. And then the church we belong to heated with coal and with wood. And this is in Fairbanks. And so we haul wood in for that too.
So you grew up there in Alaska?
Yeah, when I was a kid.
But kind of, you don't have to hit every single stop along the way there, but how did you fast forward to now? You guys are out of Indiana. How did you end up in Indiana?
So my dad was with the University of Alaska up there, and he was the vice chancellor for research and pretty much finance. And went from there to working as a controller in Tulane University. So we were in New Orleans for a while, and then he ended up being the vice president at Indiana State for finance there.
Yeah,
and that's in Terre Haute.
That's in Terre Haute, Indiana, where we're at now.
Yep,
Gotcha.
And then my dad met my mom, and then came me and my sister later, and that's where we've been.
All right. So you were born and raised in Indiana there?
Pretty much.
Pretty much, yeah.
Gotcha. New Orleans, every time you hear New Orleans or Tulane or anything, I'm immediately back eating jambalaya and boudin and all the good stuff.
Yeah.
That's you're speaking my language now when you bring up Louisiana.
Yeah, and I was in the restaurant business for years and years before we got started with this, and so we were round about with that before we started.
What kind of restaurant?
Ended up operating some TGI Fridays, but before that, I culinary school and I chefed several different places. Opened some restaurants for some different folks. Got out of culinary school and worked in some nice restaurants in the Charleston area, Charleston, South Carolina, and then moved from that, opened a restaurant with a guy, for a guy, and then I had some other folks. People, everybody liked to, especially in late '90s, everybody wanted to open a restaurant. It was a thing to do, and so someone would hire me, and we'd go, and we'd just help them design the restaurant, hire the staff, write the menus, pick the wine list, do the whole bit.
All right.
So did a little bit of that.
So pretty much consulting, and anybody watch that show Bar Rescue or something like that? You're kind of advising, and
a little bit like that. But actually, writing the menus and hiring the staff and in there. So think it's a small place, 60 seats or something like that. So it's pretty hands on and getting the place open.
Interesting.
Yeah, and then jumped over to corporate restaurants, and then ended up with TGI Fridays.
Right. So with your culinary school experience, your interest in restaurants, and your experience and all that, how do we end up transporting pets and dogs across the country?
So we had a litter in Newfoundlands, and we had 4 of them that were going to go to the West Coast, and this is in 19, right when these puppies were 7 weeks, I think, when they shut everything down.
Perfect timing for you.
We had the 2 week spit, right? And right when that hit, they stopped. Everybody stopped flying. You couldn't go anywhere. You couldn't travel. And and the restaurants were closed. They closed all the restaurants, so my job's gone. You know what I mean? And everybody's in the restaurant business was. And we had to get those puppies out there. And I don't remember the time. And gas was like 79 cents, 89 cents a gallon. And we rented a van. And I think it was $200 for a month to rent that van because couldn't rent them. Nobody was renting anything. And my youngest daughter was in high school at the time, and she was home. And I was like, "Hey, you want to take a road trip with Dad?" And I got on the boards and some of the other breeders and people that showed dogs, and we ended up. It was either 12 or 15 of them, and that had to go. That were sold that needed to go west that way, and we took a road trip and took them out and delivered them. And by the time we got back, there was people clamoring to help them deliver puppies, and we did another trip out west, and by the middle of the summer, it was going to be the kids' summer job, and by the middle of summer, it was a business.
Talk about just what's the saying? Make lemonade out of lemons, and
yeah, absolutely, and everybody was buying puppies. There was a puppy craze. If you had a litter. Litter dogs, it was going to sell. It seemed like, and
oh man, everybody wanted a dog for those few years, and I mean, you had everybody that ever just thought or considered about breeding their dogs. All of a sudden, everybody had litters on the ground.
And they were going to be breeders too, and it was
yeah.
That's certainly passed, but
right. Everybody was lonely at home, like, I have time to train a dog, and then fast forward 2 years, everybody goes back to work, and they're like, oh wow, this dog doesn't really work into my day-to-day.
Yeah, there's been some tragic stuff with that too.
Yeah. So you just kind of fell into it. You saw an opportunity, or really by necessity, you had to do it. And then, just by getting your puppies home and getting them where they needed to go, you recognize that there's an opportunity, there's a business here. And it's interesting in this space, pet transport. Somebody listening to this, if they're asking, like, really, who's going to pay somebody to transport their dog? But when you really start breaking it down and seeing the opportunities, and just, I don't know how convenient it could be for some people in certain situations. You start looking around on social media, there's always somebody asking if somebody can take their dog for here or there. There's always a trainer like, hey, can you get your dog down to me, or kennel puppy pickup. Buyers, we're not always local. Not everybody can drive cross country to pick up their dogs. So there's
a lot of time and money involved with doing that. So
right.
If you want to jump in your truck and drive 1,000 miles each way to go pick up a dog, you're taking off 2, maybe 3 days of work, or even if you're doing the work and you're still losing a day, you're sleeping in your truck, or you're a hotel or 2 hotels, and you're gone for that whole time. And by the time you do it, you've spent a lot of money. Gas is expensive. The miles on your vehicle are expensive. I think I mentioned earlier, you can't even buy a vehicle, it seems like, for less than $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 anymore. And, if you're out hunting bird dogs, you're probably driving a nice truck.
Yeah. So, I mean, exactly what I was getting at is there is a demand for this. There are people that can benefit from this service. So I'm interested in, you do this, you just fell into it, you got home, and you just said it was like word of mouth. I mean, that's how how prevalent the demand for a service like this is like y'all did one run.
Oh,
and
we were terrified to advertise. We never advertised. We never took an ad out. We didn't even have a Facebook page until 6 months ago.
Yeah, pretty much.
because at first when the puppy business was going, there was so much demand for it. It was unending.
Oh, we were brand new. If we put an ad out, we would be swamped in a heartbeat. Like
we were over swamped. We were always swamped.
Yeah, we've always been really busy. But if we would have put an ad out, it would have been never ending. You'd never even get any sleep. I mean, between the time zone difference, people would just be calling you all night long.
And they still do. It's a 7 o'clock in the morning till 11 o'clock at night job with a couple breaks in the middle because it's nationwide.
And at the end of the day, you guys, at this time, you didn't even own a van. You rented the first van.
Right.
We rented vans because there was just. Well, there's two things that caught on with the vans, right? So first they were all sitting empty, and then everybody started shopping from home. And when people started shopping from home, the rental business picked up because people could go rent a van and they could drive for Amazon.
True.
Right. And so there was a little bit of that, but there were vans that were easy to rent, and it was much more economical to do that. But that went away, right? There was.
Well, and even then, when we started to get into buying them, there weren't any bikes. You're competing with Amazon to buy the vans. That and van life. Van life picked up huge, especially after 2020. People had time off. They wanted to go travel. They're like, oh, I'll just live in my car. And no vans to buy.
Yeah, I kind of forgot about that. For a while there, so they went from there were all these vans. And I remember going down to, we had a couple Fords and we switched over to Mercedes. We went down to buy one of these Sprinter vans. And there were 5 or 6 of them sitting on the lot. And I remember the guy telling me, he goes, man, you should just buy all of these. He's like, they're a pretty good deal. We've got decent financing on them. And I was like, man, why would I buy them?
I just need one.
And I wanted to buy 2. And 6 months later, I was like, oh, I should have bought 10 of them because they were all of a sudden they were $15,000 more, and there was a year or 2 waiting list. And that was the other scary part about growing at the time, was finding the vehicles. But we got that worked out, and we did grow. At first, it was just the puppy craze, and then it was people relocating because I don't know if you want to call them exoduses. Some people do, but there was a lot of people that moved off the coast, right? So there was always people relocating from California, Oregon, it seemed like Washington, and moving other places. And the same thing on the East Coast. And there was so many relocations for a while. And then the mortgage rates went up, and that changed the business. And in that middle space there, we started making contact with people with working dogs. Started with people with their hunting dogs, and it's bird dogs, but it's also deer. Guys hunt deer with dogs and hunt hogs and rabbits and beagles, and it's the breadth.
Yeah.
But the majority of it's bird dogs, but it's a blend. And then the cattle dogs and the border collies, because the cowboys move their dogs around just like the hunters do. And then there's I would say that there's so many border collies that work that have jobs. Whether the big ones chasing geese off of airports and golf courses, and chasing birds from other places too. You got a nice. You see these big gated communities, down Florida, places like that, right, where there should just be birds. There should be waterfowl in there, and there aren't any. And the reason why is because the property managers use birds. They use the birds, and then they use them out. West in the vineyards, and the orchards out there.
It's funny when people that maybe aren't familiar with working dogs, just how many different types of jobs there are, and the dogs that perform them. Like, it would kind of blow a lot of people's mind.
Oh, there's so many.
Like, once you really get into that world, what they're doing out there.
Yeah.
I mean, you just talked about, way back when in Alaska, carrying your firewood. Now we're talking about clearing runways at the airports of geese, right? Like, there's such a wide variety of things that you can do. And that's why it's really intriguing to me, the business model that you just said, that you just named. In the last 3, 4, 5 years, there's been so many ebbs and flows and valleys and mountaintops of what the industry looked like has already changed 2, 3, 4 times in the short time y'all have been doing this. But the fact is, the demand level is still there for this type of service. But at the end of the day, you still only have one van, one driver. There, you can only service so many people at one time first starting out. So there was no need to advertise. The organic word of mouth, the fact that y'all went out there, delivered y'all's 4 puppies, and you came back and there's people asking for your help. Next thing you know, you're trying to buy 2 Sprinter vans when you should have bought 6 of them.
Yes.
Yeah, and the thing, and what I, and a lot of it too is working with the working dogs, right? And then we work with canines and sniffers and attack dogs and bite dogs, the whole that gamut too. But is that it's consistent, and the people on both ends of those transactions are great people to work with for the most part. You know what I mean? The breeders are professionals, and the people buying dogs are people that are they got a strong desire to get that dog and get that dog to work, right? And it's a little different from just puppy buyers, that are buying a doodle, right? And there's nothing wrong with buying a doodle. We've got a couple of them at the house. They my wife's got two little guys, and between the two of them, 3 little guys. Between the two of them, they weigh 10 pounds, so there's that place too. But this part of the business is it's more consistent, right? There's a lot of demand for it, and I like the people that we work with.
Yeah. So I want to, because to your point, I mean, you're dealing with professionals on one side, be it a kennel or trainer or service of some sort, and
or a handler, yeah,
or a handler on the other side, or an owner, to where, like, if they're considering spending and investing that much money in a trainer cross country, they have a vested interest, they have skin in the game to do right by that dog. So they're not going to spend thousands of dollars per month for high quality training, especially in the working dog space. When you start looking at the price structure of that type of training, they're not they're not gonna all of a sudden not jump at the opportunity to have somebody transport their dog cross country if they're already invested to the extent that they are in the actual training cost, if that makes sense. Right?
Absolutely, yeah.
So it only makes sense, and so you're dealing with people that they're not necessarily trying to cheap out or beat the system or game the system. They're actually invested in getting the dog people. They want them to get there safely, on time, and effective and stuff like that.
And they're dog people, and
they understand how things work. So that's the thing. If you've never had a dog, you're getting your first puppy, you don't know a lot about dogs. You don't know a lot about how this works. And, there's lots of concerns and questions you have to answer. They're not comfortable with the setup or the fact that their dog's being crated. And so one of the nice things about people who understand dogs and you work with dogs all the time is you see our setup and hear how we do things. And you're like, oh, that sounds great. That's perfect. We know how dogs work. That's good for them. And that's the other really nice thing about working with people who work with dogs and understand them is they get what we do too.
Yeah, it makes sense to them.
Yes.
It connects. And so the demand is there, the opportunity is there. What's preventing me, or not even preventing me, but like what hurdles if I wanted to go buy a van and start doing this service? Like, what was the process of legitimizing this, turning it into a full business? What were some of the hurdles? What were some of the things that maybe myself that's never looked into it? Are there certifications? Like what kind of stuff do you need to really get the ball rolling on this type of business?
So you need 3 things. You need to get certified with the USDA, which is not an accomplished process. Then just and then you then they come out and they do an inspection process, and then you're allowed to start transporting animals. And then the biggest hurdles are the insurance. If you're going to transport more than 5 dogs, there are a couple. I won't say there aren't any insurance companies that will insure you, but there's not a lot, right? And the insurance is very limited, so you have to insure yourself as a commercial carrier. Right, so we're insured just like, because at the end of the day, dogs are property, right? And so we're insured like a guy that ran a bunch of semi trucks or that ran an expediter that carried expensive cargo, and that insurance has gotten very, very expensive. I mean, everybody's car insurance has gone up, but I think the commercial that's one of the things that's taken out some of these big carriers has been the price, the cost to insure the rigs, and that's driven by a lot of stuff that I won't get into because I just know it costs. I just know it keeps getting more and more expensive. It's doubled in the last 3 years.
Well, and the insurance thing is really interesting, and it makes sense why it sucks that it costs this much, but it makes sense because at the end of the day, when you start breaking down the value of these dogs,
Oh
much
yeah.
more so than just the intrinsic emotional and
Oh no,
feelings value
we've moved dogs.
associated
Sold,
with
I
it.
think the most expensive dog we ever moved sold for $75,000,
And that's what I was getting
and we've
at.
had several in the $50,000 range.
Right. When you start, especially in the working dog space, when you talk about the years and the amount of resources going into training some of these canines and the working dogs, not even just the hunting dogs, but
Oh, the hunting dogs would be very, very expensive as well.
they're expensive as well too. But when you're talking about you have certain dogs that, like, let's face it, certain people's lives may depend on in certain
Oh yeah.
situations, and the level of training and resources that goes into producing that dog up to that caliber, it's not unheard of for $50 to $100,000 for that dog to cost. And so then you put in 5 of them, I think you said, minimum in the van. You're talking about a $500,000 potential if you're moving 4 or 5 of those high caliber dogs at one time.
We carry $2 million in cargo.
Right.
Yeah, and it's so we're insured. That covers a lot. It would cover a lot, if
Yeah.
in an expediter situation or somebody running the van. And
But
that's what
that's not even the emotional distress of somebody losing. God forbid you guys get in an accident and some of the dogs don't make it through it. Like, I mean, that's a heavy burden, and the financial.
yeah, and that's cargo. That's not liability, and so we're very well insured. So the insurance is expensive,
Yeah.
but it's also it's necessary.
Yeah.
It's necessary.
And I wanted to just underline that, or at least highlight it for somebody thinking like, man, you're just transporting dogs, throw them in the back of the truck. Why wouldn't my normal vehicle insurance cover that? And it's like, well, the value of that cargo is completely different.
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
It wouldn't cover it. It wouldn't
Right.
cover it. Yeah, it just wouldn't.
No.
They would tell you to. The insurance company would be like,
Yeah.
no,
Yeah.
absolutely
Good,
not.
good luck with
Yeah,
that.
in fact, they might not even insure your accident because you're acting as a business.
Oh yeah, that's a good point.
And
right
they
there.
wouldn't insure the liability when you hurt somebody because you were driving your vehicle for your business. And there's some. I knew a little bit about that before we started, and and got with an attorney before we really got going because the first trip we had we bought a co-rider, a simple one, and then on our regular plan, and we were able to do that. And then by the second trip, we were insured. We super set up as a business, and we were insured.
So somebody is interested in using your services.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's shut back. The other big hoop is these these rigs.
Yeah.
So if you're in the hunt dog space, you understand how much these ruffling crates cost, and we've got 80 of them. Not 80, between 80 and 90 of them. They're not inexpensive.
I was about to say Rufflin likes you guys. Okay.
Yeah.
they last forever, but they're they're certainly not cheap. And then and then these rigs they're expensive. By the time by the time you've got
The bumper put on. You got the arm that swings off the back and the hitch basket for the generator. And then it takes us 2 days to go in here and to insulate them, get everything installed. You've got the inverter, the rooftop AC. By the time you've got all that in there, I mean, it's expensive and it's a lot of time to get these put together.
Yeah, all the kennel vans and everything. You're right at $90,000.
Mm-hmm.
And
for just one.
One. Yeah, for one.
Yeah. Because that's what I was going to say. Well, you guys are insulated because when you're traveling cross country and people need transport service, you don't have the luxury of being like, well, it's summer, I can't move your dog because it's too hot, right?
Right.
We figure what we try to calculate for is 48 hours at 120 degrees.
Stopped.
Broke down without the engine running.
Okay.
And we're to be survivable for that. So we've always got enough water on board, always got enough fuel on board, got a generator that'll handle that, got a rooftop AC that'll handle that. And these things are insanely insulated.
So y'all have redundancy built into this. Like y'all have thought about like if we're
staying warm in the wintertime is easy.
Yeah.
The desert's terrifying.
Yeah.
Yeah. Arizona, we just had our group just went through we were in Phoenix, Las Vegas, and then in Southern California, right? And it's 117 out there yesterday.
You have to drive across Death Valley. I mean, that's the hottest.
Well, sometimes, yeah.
Yeah, it's the hottest place in the U.S.
Yeah, you were there 2 weeks ago.
Yep.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I early season last year, I went to Colorado, then Utah, and then Idaho. And going into Utah, I've never driven through the desert, and I was lugging the camper behind me as well, and I had the gas cans, and so I was taking some. I'm like, I don't need to stop and get gas here. Like I'm plenty. And man, I used I had to go into my reserve gas cans in the camper just to get through there, because if you haven't driven through the desert, it's like you're going a while before seeing civilization.
Oh
You-
yeah,
you
yeah.
know?
There's lots of remote areas that we do where, I mean, you have to prepare to be able to drive maybe 150 to 250 miles because there's nothing.
Yeah.
There's no
There's
services,
just nothing. Yeah.
and there's no people either.
Especially at night, and then we run 24/7. So it's the nighttime because there'll be some little gas stations, but
All closed.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, that was September, I think, when I was going through there. And so it wasn't June, July, August, but it was still plenty hot enough to where, like, if I didn't have gas, my dogs were fine. Like, I wasn't in danger or anything like that, but it was an unnecessary risk. I really is the best way to qualify it. But I made it there, and I'm like, man, if you break down out here and you aren't, a mile or two, luckily, to the next gas station, like, you could be waiting here a while, especially if you're in an area that doesn't get a lot of traffic.
Yeah, long time.
That's the biggest. That's the thing we're most protected from is the heat and the summertime and a remote breakdown. And we've got we're set up so that we can get a vehicle. We've got a program where we if we did break down, we'll have a vehicle to us very quickly.
Okay.
And they'll be delivered. And then I've got two big contracts with tow services and all kinds of other stuff so that you're protected, and for roadside services. And that part of it's not the fear. It's that it would take a while.
Yeah.
They say it's going to be quickly, and they'll guarantee it's going to be quickly, but that doesn't mean that the guys on the end of that aren't busy or they can't get to you or whatever. So but if you got water, fuel, good generator, nice air conditioning set up, and you're well insulated, you're gonna be okay for a while.
2 days, somebody to walk the dog.
Yeah.
Maybe the driver hopefully has a book waiting. Something.
Yeah. And ideally, you're thinking way less than 12 hours. But
Yeah.
that's just the worst. You got to be set up for
The worst case scenario.
Yeah, you got people's dogs. It's a huge deal. It's such a that they're trusting you with those dogs. You got to be able to keep them safe.
Well, and that's the big word there is trusting. When you talk, especially in today's day and age, when people refer to them as fur babies and whatever else, the main thing that people are going to be concerned about is, like, can I trust them? Are they taking care of the dog? There's so much emphasis, but beyond just even the health, but going back to the bite dog and working dogs, those dogs are trained with a specific skill set, with a specific handling style. You can't really just entrust anybody to take that Ferrari out for a spin, right?
Oh no, if they're handled correctly, they're safe. But if they're not, they're not.
Yeah.
You've got to know what you're doing. You can't just put your hands on them and start petting them.
Right. Yeah.
You'll walk up and start rubbing her belly. That's.
You can try it. You might
try
regret it.
Yeah, that's its own space. And also, people don't want. And you're moving somebody's hunting dog. Moving somebody's pointer or something, they don't want you to handle their dog.
Right.
They want you to walk their dog. They want you to exercise their dog. They want you to feed and water their dog and take care of them.
That's it.
But they don't want you handling them.
They're not paying you to train. They're paying you to move them.
Yeah, they're not paying you to train. They're not paying you to turn them into your pet. They're paying you to move them and keep them safe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what kind of management do you guys have instilled, like protocol? Like, are y'all stopping every so many hours? Do y'all have like a one dog out at a time rule? Like, talk to me about the day-to-day protocol for you guys.
So we treat every dog like they're gonna kill each other, even if they're not. Even if they're not. Most of the dogs that we have, they're really nice. They're social. They're used to being around other dogs, but they're completely separate. So we always travel in teams of two with two drivers.
Okay.
I'll get one out. I go take it to a corner of the field that we're walking in, and then he'll come over, grab another one, take it to the other corner, and then they all go in separate so that completely separate from each other. Dogs have no interaction unless they come together. If you send me, two dogs that came from you, I can go walk those two dogs together. Other than that, everybody is separate.
Yeah.
And then
we've got a double door policy with the dogs. We'll get them in and out. So that door's never open unless this door's closed.
Okay.
Yes.
Right.
And we're all slip leads.
Yep, these are the ones we use.
Yep.
Can't get out of there. It's nice and tight. We don't trust collars. You don't trust any of the harnesses because you never know.
Every dog can slip a harness. Every dog can slip a collar.
Yep.
Maybe not. I don't know. Some of the really nice ones, maybe, but that's that's your dog when you're walking them, not your dog if they get scared to death or something, or stung by a wasp or a bee,
Yeah.
and they think something's trying to kill them, and then they start doing everything they can do to pull away from you. Most of them get out of those collars, even the really nice ones, even the thick ones, even the ones that tied up around their necks. If they think that and that's the thing you got to think of is that dog goes out and he steps on a wasp, right? And you're a stranger and you just met him and you got him out for his first walk, and now he thinks that something's trying to kill him. He's going to try to get away.
Right.
And they those dogs are strong and they're capable, and they'll hurt themselves trying to get away. And with the slip leads, the worst case worst case scenario is that they run out of air for a couple of seconds.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, it's every dog you're completely unfamiliar with. There's no bond. There's no relationship. Every dog
Right.
has different commands. Every dog's been trained to a different level.
Some
It's
dogs,
like
some dogs are well trained, have been handled by lots of people, and it's super easy. And some dogs
right.
have not been, and they are not.
So really, the only way to go about this is to assume every dog is a flight risk. Every dog is an aggressive dog. Just assume the worst in every single situation.
Yep.
And then you guys don't have any surprises.
Yeah, and then you can build. You've got them out 4 times a day.
Mm-hmm.
And that's our minimum is 4 times a day out. And
Yeah, 4 times a day. We try to stop every 4 to 6 hours. Occasionally, like if we are in the desert, it's 120 degrees outside. We're not going to get your dog out. I mean, they'll just burn their paws stepping on sand. Or sometimes in the winter, we'll go somewhere and it's negative 20. I mean, you can't take dogs outside in that.
not all dogs, anyways.
Yeah, not all of them. So, but yeah. So it's usually every 4 to 6 hours, almost all the time. Occasionally, if it's somewhere really hot, I mean, we try not to go any longer than 8.
Okay.
Yeah, but if you're close to Mojave and then the ground's, the ground could be 100, 600 degrees, you can't get your dogs out and walk them. Because
Yeah, they'll burn their pads.
They'll blister their pads.
What about the protocol set up for like illnesses or sicknesses? Like, do you guys require shot records?
So we want
vaccines?
shot records and health certificates. So you on dogs that we're transporting, right? So proof of vaccinations and then a health certificate from your vet for the and that's for interstate transportation of dogs.
Yeah.
So that's what you're looking at.
What's the process like? Say I give you guys my dogs to transport wherever, fill in the blank, and one of them there's a vet issue. You got to take them to the vet. Like, are you guys on the phone with me asking? Like, is there an understanding? Like, there's a threshold here.
Oh, yeah. So the most important thing is to have constant communication, so you know how your dog is doing. And then the other thing is for the drivers. So I'm driving right now. Is you have to watch him. So, like, every time your dog goes to the bathroom, he takes poop, I got to go look at that. I got to make sure that looks good. I got to look at him when he pees and make sure that he's hydrated. I got to check his eyes and his ears and his nose and make sure he's feeling good, make sure he's not getting too hot, he's drinking, eating, everything like that. And then if there's a problem, like, I'll notice it right away, because if you're looking all the time, you'll see it and you can catch it immediately. So if your dog starts not to feel good, I can say, hey, your dog's not feeling good. This is what I think is going on. What do you think? You can say, oh, I probably know what that is. You should try this. So I can do that. Or I can say, no, I think it's a little worse, and then I think we should stop somewhere. Then, if you're comfortable with it, we'll stop. We can see a vet. We could stop for a couple hours, get him checked out, get him back in the van. If we have to leave him, we can organize that too. But most of the time, it always starts out as a little thing. But as long as you're checking them all the time and you have an eye for it, you just don't really run into big problems
before it turns into
you don't run into big problems.
And this isn't the job where you wanted to come do this for me, and I would hire you, and we would train you for 40 hours and turn you loose. So I've got 4 people that I feel that are qualified to run vans. Josie, who's been breeding, working with dogs her whole life, and now she's got probably 6,000 or 7,000 hours of doing this. There's myself, another guy that's got. Mike's at 8,000 hours now, and I've got another guy that we're just getting ready to turn loose, and he's got about 5,500 hours of experience. So it's easier to do a lot of things than it is to do this, right? And we're still working with him. I feel he's very competent, but just a little bit more.
Yeah.
And then you'll be ready. And because with experience, you can touch that puppy and pick a puppy up, and the second it's in your hand, if it's unhealthy or if there's an issue, right? And that comes with just comes with experience,
Right.
And lots of it, and it's not an easy thing, but we're set up. we're set up if your dog has a problem or has an emergency or there's a health issue on there, your dog's going to get to a vet very quickly. We're going to contact. We're going to let you know what's going on with your dog, and
And we carry
cool.
stuff along too. We usually almost always have some type of painkiller, antibiotics. We carry stuff so that we can set up an IV if we have to. We've always got like NutriCal, nutrition supplement. We've got stuff along for dogs that are diabetic.
Yeah, there's an emergency vet kit, and everybody's got training for it.
Yeah. So
Perfect. That's kind of where I was leading to next is the training and the understanding of first aid if necessary. What about
There's not a lot of conditions that I think we're going to need to. We have the kit, but I don't think we've ever used it.
no.
Thankfully, I mean,
Yeah.
that's
and we haven't moved a couple hundred dogs. It's thousands.
right.
You know what I mean?
And that's what we hope. Find
Yeah.
some wood to knock on. Is it
Yeah.
emergency kits are not?
And we're set up. And the nice thing is, I don't want to. Is that the prevalence of emergency vets is gotten much better. Also, most of the state. Most of the state hospitals, the state veterinary hospitals, right, accept patients 24 hours a day now, especially in the western states for whatever reason. So you can get a dog, if you get a dog that gets sick or you think you've got a health crisis, you can get them into a quality vet or get a recommendation for a high quality veterinary service. And not that there's anything wrong with going to the clinic that's, in most of these towns, but, there's a difference between going to, for people, there's a difference between going to the little quick clinic and then going to an emergency veterinary service. They're not, they're not the same thing. One place is going to have a surgeon that's in the building 24/7 and access to someone that's going to come in. And we don't have contracts with those facilities, but we know they are.
Right.
And we have relationships with a lot of people that either that use them or like directly there. So that's the nice thing too.
I don't know if there's a community in the country where we don't work with a breeder.
And I don't want to hang on this too much longer just because it's such a special case scenario. Like you said, it doesn't pop up, but just the way my brain's wired, I like to think of like worst case scenario,
Sure.
what could happen. So like, what's the process of you have a dog with an emergency, you have to take them to an emergency vet. That emergency vet, they need to make sure that they're getting paid. So do you guys have an arrangement with the owner of that dog before you set out? Is there pet insurance requirements? Like, is there anything in that?
We don't have a
instance?
pet insurance requirement. At the end of the day, it's the owner's responsibility, but we certainly aren't waiting on payment. You know, I'm not going to put $5,000 on $5,000 or $10,000 on my credit card, but $750 or $1,000, we're going to get the dog treated right away.
Right, and that's fair, I think.
Yeah, we're gonna get treatment started. We're gonna go to the vet. We're gonna get treatment started. If it's 3:00 in the morning and we can't get you to answer your phone, we're not gonna not treat because we couldn't get a hold of you.
Right, and that's what I was looking for.
Yeah,
is,
we're going to the vet. If the dog needs to go to the vet, we're going to the vet, and then we'll discuss why we went to the vet afterwards, and we can hash that out and find out if the dog needs to go to the vet. Dog needs to go to the vet, and and I would say that we were probably as qualified or much more qualified than the average dog owner to know that dog needs to go to the vet.
Any other restrictions in terms of age or anything in the dogs? Because a lot of young puppies.
Puppies got to be 8 weeks.
There you go.
8 weeks they got to be fully vaccinated. That's the USDA rules and they're good rules. And sometimes maybe it should be 10 weeks.
Right.
I'm not. 10 weeks is probably better than 8 weeks, but they can go at 8 weeks.
What is it? The 3 pound rule.
2 pound rule.
2 pound rule. If your dog's under 2 pounds, can't go. Because we do these puppies that are really little, and just because it's 8 weeks, if it's under 2 pounds, you can't come. It's too small.
And
There's too much that can happen.
Some of those tiny ones, they got to be 16, 8 weeks.
Yep.
So
Yep. And
a
then
lot of guys that have hunting dogs, their wife or they might have a little companion dog too. So that's the
pups got to be at least 8 weeks, so that way they have their first round shots. Have to have at least one. The more the better. And then for USDA, pups are not fully vaccinated and ready to be able to go on the ground until they're between 14 to 16 weeks. So if your dog's under 16 weeks old, stays in the van the whole time because the van's safe. As soon as you come out on the ground, there's risk for like coccidia, parasites, parvo's the big one. So you're in the van the whole time. And then as far as the old dogs, is we take lots of old disabled dogs all the time.
because they can't fly.
Because they can't fly, and and they need special care, and it's better that there's always 2 of us. There's someone driving, there's someone available to help, and they need extra time. So there's 2 of us. There's always somebody to take care of them. But we have a conversation. Got to have an understanding. Hey, your dog is old. This is stressful. They have special needs. this could be hard on them. One thing that we like to say is, would you take your 90-year-old grandma, would you put her on the Greyhound bus and send her across the country? Right. So,
which kind of brings it home.
Yeah.
Because we have transported, I think the oldest dog we had was 19. It's an old dog.
Yeah, that's a really old dog.
That's a really old dog. But people get in situations where, and this is where somebody passes away and they have an elderly dog, or and the dog has to be moved, or they get forced into a relocation and they just can't do it. There's situations that happen with
and we do that a lot. We've got a couple of contracts with people, especially people with lots of dogs. So if you're like hunting guy and you've got a kennel of dogs, you would put us in your will. Hey, when I die, these are my transporters. They have to come and get my dogs and take them to where they're going. So.
Somebody started to talk. I don't know who started that conversation with people. It was one of the kennel owners, because a lot of times when you buy a dog from a kennel, if you don't keep the dog, they have first option to get the dog back. There's contracts like that and whatnot, right? Yep. That's not uncommon at all. First right of refusal for the dog,
yeah, a lot of breeders have that worked into their puppy contracts.
So
now.
They set it up so that we're the transporter. So that if that person passes away, we're in their will to contact us.
So if a breeder's listening to this and they're sick of their dogs ending up in the homes that are other than the people that they sold their dogs to, they work in the right of refusal in the contract, you guys are specifically called out into those contracts.
And we'll go get the dog.
Yep.
I like that. That makes a lot of sense, because that prevents dogs potentially ending up in rescues or just bad living environments, just because somebody during COVID thinks that I have time to train my dog now and that I want to go upland hunting, and then fast forward, you mean I have to go back to work? Now I don't have time for this. Yeah. And then they just go.
And I bought a dog that I don't have time to spend with, and it's just storing my home.
Exactly.
We do a lot of that too.
Yeah, we do a lot of that too.
So in the spirit of the old dog conversation and the medicine and just having to deal with things on a schedule, this takes me into nutrition. And this is, I'm interested to hear y'all's take on it, because there's few things in the dog world that will cause people to just go blow for blow in a parking lot, like dog nutrition, whether that's raw versus kibble versus feeding once a day versus twice a day, wet versus dry. Everybody has a different requirement for their dog.
We feed per your instructions.
Okay.
Yep. So if you want to send her along frozen raw, we're equipped for that, and we'll feed your frozen raw. If you want to feed kibble, we'll feed kibble. If you want to open feed, we'll open feed. Most puppies, during travel, because they're not all super steady on their legs the first while, most puppies will be open fed or close to open fed during transit, especially the little guys. But adult dogs, old dogs, juveniles, everybody else, and your puppies, we'll just feed per your instructions. And usually not. And if it's coming from a breeder, coming from wherever, we'll feed per their instructions. So if he wants to feed us once a day, you want to feed twice a day, you want to feed 3 times a day, you want us to feed kibble, you want us to give supplements.
You guys don't care why or how or who or what.
Just do what you're told.
It's not our dog, it's your dog. You tell us how to do it and we'll do it.
Yeah, just do what you're told. Do what we're told.
Easy enough.
And I would say that we're better at that than any kennel or handler you're going to send to.
Right.
Yes.
Right. Easy enough.
Yeah. Only thing we're pretty strict on is everybody's got access to water all the time. So, it doesn't happen. Occasionally somebody will fight. They don't need to have water all day. Yes, they do. That's the one thing, is they're going to have water
especially
all
when
day.
You're dealing with dogs in uncommon situations. Maybe they're anxious. It's like, some dogs are really funny with how they drink water, how they eat.
And where they're from. The dog from South Florida that you take out to the desert, it's a completely different environment.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? The humidity, there's no humidity. It's just different. They need to have water.
What about when you guys air them out? You said you have a 2-door policy. You mentioned a field. I go to one corner, the other person goes to the other one. A lot of people, and I'm not as strict about this with my older dogs, but especially with younger dogs, I don't go to the common areas. I don't go to.
Oh yeah, so we don't do rest areas. We avoid truck stops when we can. Dog parks are like an absolute no. One of the greatest places are Dollar Generals. Dollar Generals are everywhere. They're all over the country. People don't take their dogs to Dollar General, and Dollar General's almost always next to a field. So you could park into Dollar General and you can go walk the dog through an open field.
Yeah, and they popped them up in every rural community in the country, and they put grass around them so they look nice.
Yep.
Yeah, they've got a space back there. That's been nice. Yeah.
Or sometimes we do truck stops. Truck stops are next to like a big open field. So we go take them into the open field. Or sometimes, we'll just park out in the middle of nowhere, if there's...
That's a lot of it.
Yep, a lot of open space. You're out in the middle of nowhere, then we'll just go walk them out there.
Dollar Generals. It's funny. I can't. I'm gonna butcher the joke, but there's something along the lines of running out there. Like if a Dollar General bag just blows through the desert, poof! All of a sudden you have a brand new Dollar General out in the middle of nowhere. It's just like, who would live here? And then there's a Dollar General.
And being that we drive through, just seems like every rural community in the country. Boy, they're everywhere now.
They are. They are. They're popping up everywhere. So I need transport service. I'm reaching out to you guys. I'm calling. I'm hitting up Facebook. All these links and phone number and information's down in the show notes if anybody's interested and they want to ask these questions directly. But what's the process? What's pricing, scheduling? Just walk me through the whole process.
So we run a basic route around the United States every 2 weeks, and then there's more. There's quite a bit on top of that, but that one always runs. Right, so it's kind of clockwise around here, and starts down the East Coast. We come across the bottom, we go around, and that loop from, let's say, California to California we're there every 2 weeks, right? So we'll be on the opposite side of the country in a week, and then back in a week. So cross country trips are, 5 or 6 days typically, depending on where you're going. If you want to go from Miami to Seattle, it might be just a little bit longer, another day or so. And then there's a lot of variants and more stuff inside that, and we're in the process of building another one that runs the other way, right? And that one doesn't run quite as regularly now. So if you're along those routes, then I'm not going to give all the pricing, but the pricing is pretty consistent. We're very, very competitive, and we've stayed that way, and mostly because we stayed competitive because we're working with working dogs. That's the goal here is to be. I would love to be 90% working dog.
It'd be great.
Oh,
it would be great.
The owners have a little more skin in the game.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
they're 80%.
Well, and they're return. A lot of them are return trips too. I mean,
True.
if you're taking your dog out for season, I mean, you're gonna take him back. You're taking your dog to the trainer. You're gonna take him back, or like the Cowboys or whatever. They're moving.
Hunting season's coming around every single year.
Yes.
You can count on repeat business.
Yeah,
Yes.
and the cows always got to move.
Right.
Yep.
And they move in different parts of the country. They're not moving cows in Montana at the same time they're moving cows in Florida.
Right.
And those guys, anyways. So it's I don't know, where was I going with that? We were talking about the route and the route and the pricing, right? And so you want to get a hold of us. You want to quote right now. I would say I was saying earlier, I put my phone down. I'm not going to have it for an hour or two, and I got some anxiety because I know there's messages on there with people wanting quotes. Right, there always are, and so we've got a team that work on that. It's myself, my wife, Jocelyn occasionally, and we're usually back to it. I would say half an hour is forever to hear back from us on a quote. Usually it's 5-10 minutes.
Yeah, and every person's getting like a custom quote because we're a door-to-door service. So we're not like meeting you in the city or like meeting you at a certain point. It's from wherever it came from the door to wherever it's getting dropped off that door.
You don't have a bus stop in the middle of Chicago where you
Right.
pull up and see who's waiting on you.
Right.
You want
So,
to ship a dog, we're pulling in your driveway, we're meeting you, we're shaking your hand, we're loading your dog up, and we're taking it to wherever it's going, and it's going there the same exact way.
So every quote's a quote is a custom quote to you specifically. And then also like your timing. You might need, if you got like a show dog or it's got to be, at the trainers at a certain time, then, we got to work on your timeline, your addresses, what you need. Some people are only available at certain times of the day. So everything is completely custom to you and how you need it.
It's just like shipping anything. Right, you want to mail something, and you want to go work on FedEx Ground or,
priority, first class, whatever the heck they call it.
Yeah, there are low rates, and then there are rates where it would, for the
how
exact
bad
same,
do you want it?
For the exact same thing. How bad do you want it, and where do you need it, and how quickly do you need it? And also, you want to send that same package to a big city that we're in all the time, but you want to send it to the top of the mountain, Montana. It's different. And so the rates vary, but we're very quick on getting quotes out on it, and they're very reasonable. Now, if you're a breeder and you breed puppies, you're a breeder and you've got puppies and you're sending puppies out, that's different. So we've got fairly consistent fixed rates for that. We talk about what the rates are, and they pretty much stay the same. You can kind of count on them.
Yeah.
There's quite a few breeders who've got us. Or if you're a handler, a professional trainer, and you need to bring dogs in, and you're bringing in dogs from from different parts of the country, then we try to standardize those rates more for you.
Well, and I mean, we could literally spend all day here dreaming up what if scenarios that could warrant a service such as this, and,
Sure.
and arranging it. And of course, that's why it's got to be on a special case by case basis because everybody lives where they live, and everybody wants the dog to go where they want it to go. Not everybody's the same in that. So I think that's why, like, if they look at your website, they're like, well, why can't they just give me a mileage rate or something? It's like, because it's different. It's different there's too many contingencies and contexts that you got to actually dig into.
And there's whether you want your dog to go privately or you're okay. So in here, we've got a group environment. There's more than one dog going, right? And so so you share the cost, just like, flying private or flying commercial. Flying economy or flying first, what I mean? There's a big difference there. You want to go by yourself in an airplane or in any kind of vehicle, right? And it's just you, it's expensive. You want to get on a bus or get on a plane with everybody else, it's very reasonable because you guys are all sharing a cost. And it's the same thing with the dog.
Yeah. My dogs don't warrant a private jet because I don't warrant a private jet,
Yes.
right?
Hey, but there are people.
There are plenty of people that do. So if you want us to come get your dog from down in Miami and you want it to go to Seattle all by itself, then we can make that happen. It's just going to cost.
Well, and it's funny that comes up because I've been running your guys' ad for a couple weeks now. By the time we record this, and I've had a couple buddies reach out and they're like, what's this? What's the cost? And they're interested, one particular, because he goes in the fall. He takes a string of client dogs up wherever,
Sure.
And he's looking at it like, well, in my rig I can fit X amount of dogs. Maybe if I had a pet transport service business wise, I could open up more by taking more dogs or whatever.
Absolutely.
To where his bottleneck is the transportation of the dogs. It's not his time to working dogs by the time he gets there, but it's just getting the dogs there.
Oh yeah, and spending the time gathering the dogs up.
Yeah, so he could literally call you guys and be like, hey, I have a van full. Pretty much every kennel in that van I'll fill up right now, and that's going to be a different rate than if he calls you and says, hey, I have one dog to take to Montana.
Yeah. Exactly.
Well, and our biggest thing, our biggest convenience to people who choose to use our service is most of the time it's their time. So let's say, like you're here in Tennessee, you want to go out to Idaho and you want to hunt, right? Well, you only have a week. You have a week that you get to go. It might take you 2 days to drive up there, and it's going to take you 2 days to drive back, right? So that's 4 days of that week that you had allotted to go out there. Well, if you call us, then,
your dog's there when you get there. And
your dog's there when you get there, and the day you leave, we come pick them up. So you have your full week, and, and then we'll take care of the rest of it. So that's...
So last year when I went to Idaho, it was one way was 33 hours, and I was hauling a camper with me as well. So there and back, 66 hours there and back. And of course you're not just driving on one leg 33 hours straight. So yeah, you're looking at a 2-day transport right there. So if you are that one person that wants that dream trip, you can make it work if the dog can be waiting on you.
And for what you spent hauling your camper up there and driving up there, you could have flown up there, stayed in a really nice place, rented a vehicle, had your gun shipped or flown with them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
because at the end of the day, it's not like you're foregoing. You're exchanging one cost for another.
Yes.
Right. So,
but what you're gaining is time.
Right. And that's what I was getting at, is time is the most valuable resource. No matter what, you're paying the money, whether you're driving out there or you're paying somebody else to drive out there or not. That's just when you have to weigh the cost and be like, hey, can I get a plane ticket for cheaper than what, the gas and the maintenance and the wheel time actually
And then
costs.
buying puppies and like going to the trainers. You might not be able to go to the trainer because you're saying like, I do not have 3 or 4 days to take off from my job and to drive my dog across the country.
I got to work and pay for the trainer.
Well, right. and something that I was coming up considering before we recorded on this is recently I did a few episodes on the CCL injury and ACL repairs for dogs, and how the cost drastically changes by region.
Oh, so we do that too. I've got a Great Pyrenees coming from Washington to Missouri. Right now, got I can't remember exactly what the injury is but the knee's completely blown out, and got to have surgery, right? And they were looking at what that was going to cost in Washington State to have it done versus what they were going to have it done in Missouri, and it's about half. And so we currently have that dog transported, and he's eating and drinking well, and healthy dog, just can't walk. So we'll walk him on a sling. We've got a belly sling, and then walk him on a belly sling, and he's going to go down and have surgery there, and then he's going to recover to with the local breeder, and then bring him back.
Yep, and that's where it fits in so nicely to where it's like, hey, I know if I send my dog to Missouri in this scenario, and I'm saving $5,000. I don't know your pricing, and again, you got to save it, but you're going to save a lot of money.
It's not $5,000.
It's not $5,000. So yeah, there you can get creative and you can kind of dream up so many different scenarios besides just convenience. It's just like no, like this could when this is a business and a business expense is a dog needing a medical issue
absolutely.
resolved, or maybe there's a specialist or rehab facility that you really need to get this operating dog to.
Yeah, reproductive services, breeding,
Whatever.
Yeah, doing all that stuff, and we've done all that for people. Helped with, and because we're experienced with dogs, so we've helped with all aspects of that.
Yeah.
Moving, because there's dogs that have, there's dogs where they can collect semen, and for frozen season, there's other dogs in the breeds that they're only allowed to do live breedings, right?
Oh yeah.
Right.
And so we move bitches all over the country for that.
Oh yeah. Two months ago, I had a dog. She threw her pups in the van.
Oh wow, there's a surprise for you.
Yep.
Yeah.
So,
and we had another. So we've had situations where people missed their, they were going to miss the season by the time the dog got there, so we just got the dogs together.
Okay.
Yep.
Wow. There you go.
Yeah, so we've got not a giant facility, but a small facility from when we had an active breeding operation at the house, but
much more than just a transportation service.
So yeah. So we do a lot of that. So whatever when you think about we got to get a dog from here to there, for whatever reason, we can help with that.
Yeah. So if I have a pregnant dog and I know that the date's coming up, I can call you guys and ask for a bid on whelping services. Then it sounds like
no.
Well, no, you just asked for us to transport her. We're gonna hope she doesn't till she gets there.
If you get your dates wrong, she's going to be safe and okay. And
what do you mean? I thought we had plenty of time over here. All right.
But we can. Yeah.
For the right price.
But nobody's picking that.
Yeah. Well, something that I like to do on all of these episodes is there's always something that we glossed over, or I overlooked or something. I like to throw it to the guests at the end of it to just say, is there something I should have asked you or we should have brought up that we didn't? What did we overlook?
Oh, one thing people have lots of questions about. Well, this is obviously, your fur baby. Like this is your livelihood. Like this is important to you. This is a member of your family. How's my dog doing? How do I know where my dog is? How do I know my dog is doing okay? Like, I don't know who you guys are. Like, you're a stranger. We get that all the time. So we don't offer GPS tracking, but one of us is always available. So there's two drivers. One's driving, one's usually sleeping. So whoever's driving, 24 hours a day, you can call them or text them. We'll tell you where we are, where we're located, where we're driving to, how your dog is doing. We try to send updates at least twice a day with pictures. And we're just always available so that you can always ask us. You can always see. I mean, sometimes people, they need a FaceTime call or they need a video. And we can, we can do all of that to kind of like put people at ease. But that's a big one.
I laugh, but that is true. Like just putting them at ease, just being comfortable, especially the first time through.
My phone's never off. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because people, obviously the different time zones. But then, people just get worried. They'll be like, hey, where's my dog? And then I always tell people now anymore. Like I said, I don't offer GPS service because I've tried twice, and it's so hard to manage with so many dogs moving in so many places with so many owners, because of that GPS service. So we sign up, and it's in that. It's difficult. It's more difficult. It's much easier to track a package because you just put a tracking device in it, right? And that's what I tell people: buy an AirTag.
Yeah. Oh yeah, lots of people.
If you want to know your dog is, what are they, 2 for $30 now?
Yeah, they're really.
Yeah,
they're really
send an AirTag.
Buy an AirTag. Send the AirTag along.
Yeah, put it on their collar. Give it to me to keep. We'll keep it in the van. People put it in a bag.
Everybody sends a bag of food and a bag of stuff. A few things. We always ask for feed and
throw an AirTag in the bag of kibble.
Yep.
Yeah.
There you go. And you got an AirTag along. You know right where your dog's at.
Yeah. The AirTag would be the simplest solution for
it's simple.
handlers.
It's simple and it's cheap. And then when it gets to where it's going, it's there, and you still got the AirTag. Use it next time or whatever else you want to do with it.
Well, and I mean, this is just a consideration. Y'all can take it or leave it if you want. But if you guys have a Garmin watch, you guys can set that up, and guys can actually on the Garmin tracker set up a link to where somebody can just go log in on there, and they can see your van, like wherever your watch is. They can just go look at it. So you could just give somebody a link, but I like the AirTag idea.
I said it. Well, the problem is you can make it a link with the vans available. I've seen that. The other one, people like the personalized ones, where they can log in and see that, where everybody's got access to log in to see that link, right? And Man, you get that list of 2,000 or 3,000 people, it doesn't work.
That's a lot of people.
That's the thing, is it's constantly changing. And
Yeah, pick up, drop off, pick up, drop off, pick up, drop off. So you have to add someone on there, take someone off, add someone on there.
Constantly managing that access and managing that link was the thing that I found was difficult. And then I was like, that's why I was like,
Makes sense.
Just send AirTag.
Yeah. When you guys are driving, I'm assuming, I mean, y'all just have GDIY podcasts on repeat for the dogs listening.
I listened to 6 of them on the way up here.
they're just learning through osmosis, right?
Absolutely.
Well, I mean, guys, like, in all seriousness, I mean, I told y'all before we started, I know that there are some other companies that offer this, but it seems to be very like regionally based, or just like they service half this side of the country or half that side of the country. There's really not anybody that does the full country and have the routes and the capability to do what you guys are doing. So I think it is a service that, again, if you go look on Facebook or social media, there's always somebody like, hey, I'm making this trip, who needs a transport, and somebody's always jumping at it, right? And so this is one of those things that I think it is a valuable resource, especially if it affords people to get more time on the ground on their hunting trip, spending more time doing what they actually love to do rather than just transporting or saving money through the vet. Again, we can go down the list of all of the reasons why somebody might appreciate this, but I think what you guys are doing, and the longer you guys do it and really like fine tune the process, I think it's a really valuable service to the dog community as a whole, whether they're working dogs or not. But I think if anybody's listening to this and they're wondering, how can I get that dream trip out to Oregon to chase mountain quail, and they live in Connecticut or something like that, you can fly, the dog can travel, because whether it's in this rough-land or the rough-land in the back of their truck, either way, I'm going to say that, my dogs, they don't have AC and insulation inside of a van, in the back of the truck. So like it's when you start looking at it objectively,
I can tell you your dog arrives well rested, right? Unstressed.
And that's huge when you're going for a week-long hunting or working trip for that dog.
Yep, and ready to go. Well fed and ready to go.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate you guys coming out, showing me around the van. I mean, you guys have a really neat setup here, and I look forward to seeing how you guys grow and what it turns into, because I have a feeling, like you said, you've already kind of gone through so many ebbs and flows in the market.
Oh, yeah, several evolutions.
Yeah, I think it's only going to continue, but I think it's a service, depending on how you look at it, that's always going to be necessary. So it'll be interesting to see what it kind of grows into from here.
I'm certainly excited about it.
Yeah, really excited.
Yeah. All right, thanks, guys.
Yep.